And now it's my pleasure to introduce for our welcome, David Musto, the chair of IDEA from Thermal Systems. Last night, we kind of off the cuff said he's now the retired founder and CEO of Thermal Systems, and that happened on June 1st. So let's give Dave Musto a nice round of applause. Dave, please welcome us.
Thanks, Rob. Good morning. Good morning. Well, as Rob said, my name is David Musto. I'm the former CEO of Thermal Systems. The theme for our conference this week is empowering our next generation. That means putting our up-and-coming stars on the field and giving them a chance. Rob, it's just like when my NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles gave a young Alabama rookie named Jalen Hurts a chance. Sure, he struggled a bit in the beginning, threw a few picks, but we believed in him. We gave him the tools he needed to succeed, and 2 years later, he led us to an NFC championship, much to the chagrin of my friend Juan Antaveros and all those people down in Dallas. So welcome to Chicago, another great football town. We have a full program planned for you, so let's make the most of it. It's my pleasure to introduce our conference host, a leader that I truly admire, someone who certainly knows how to field a winning team, Mr. Steve Swinson from Centrio. Please, Steve.
Well, good morning. Before I start, I made a real mistake last night. For any of you that were at the conference, we had 3 John Gray Scholarship Award winners present last night, and besides the one that we gave the award to last night. And I didn't mention Paige Davis with Austin Energy. Paige. That's a great program. That's our future. We were talking afterwards, and I kind of ad-libbed a little bit last night and asked everybody to raise their hand that knew John Gray. And I was a little surprised that it was probably less than a third of the room. But then I was reminded that that's not all bad, that we got that next generation coming along, and IDEA is in good hands. So I'm pleased. So on behalf of the 180 plus Centrio team members across the country, I want to welcome you to Chicago. We are proud to host the District Energy System's 114th IDEA annual conference. We're especially proud that for the first time, the host energy system is carbon zero. The Centrio District Energy System serves over 53 million square feet with 6 energy plants across our system, 5 of which are interconnected. These plants use the largest ice storage system in North America. For those that are going to go on the tour Thursday, you are in for a real treat. You will see firsthand the scale of the system and the innovation that is taking place. Specifically, you'll learn more about our Chicago River ultrafiltration project, and I encourage you to attend Bill Dolan's talk about this, and it'll really help you understand when you see. At Centrio, we believe sustainable operations, See, for the first time, I saw Carlyle and I saw Dave, and they write out these really great things that they say, and I usually just get up here and, like John Gray says, things just spew out of my mouth like water over Niagara Falls. Now I'm trying to use technology and it doesn't work. I'm going back to the way I used to do this. At Centrio, we believe in operations occur when we operate by creating social equity in our communities while remaining economically strong and maintaining balance with the environment. We are committed to innovative energy and sustainable solutions. So over the next 3 days, go slow. Listen, learn, network. And when you return home, go fast, making your workplace, your community, and the world we're in more sustainable. If there's anything we can do at Centrio to help you during this conference to make it better, please don't hesitate to let us know. And we're glad to have you and be the host. Good day.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you for your gracious hospitality, and it's really a pleasure to be here in the Windy City. So now I have the pleasure to introduce a panel, I think a stellar panel, and let me get my appropriate notes. So their bios are in the app, so I'm not going to get into the details behind their careers, but let me first, I'm going to start here and go alphabetically. Carlyle Coutinho is the president and CEO of Enwave Energy, based in Toronto, Ontario. Please hold your applause until I introduce the entire panel. Welcome, Carlyle, or welcome back. To his left, Frank Cuomo. Frank is the general manager of steam services at ConEdison in New York City, the largest district steam system in the world. Frank, thank you for coming. To his left, Jake Graff. Jake is the regional general manager with Cordia Energy, and Jake is joining us from Minnesota, the Minneapolis Energy Center, and he has primary responsibility for the downtown area, the steam and chill water system in Minneapolis. Welcome, Jake, and other assets as well. To his left is Brian Mueller. Brian is Chief Development Officer at Vicinity Energy, and Vicinity has systems in 12 cities with headquarters in Boston, Cambridge. Brian actually makes his home in Clemson, South Carolina. I don't know if he's wearing the orange socks again today, but he's a tiger through and through. And to his left, my pleasure to welcome Lisa Sparrow, who's the president and CEO of the Corix group of companies. Corix owns and operates district energy systems in 12 locations, serving cities, communities, and campuses. Welcome, Lisa. And finally, Steve Swinson, whom you just met. Centrio has systems in 8 locations, and Steve has been active in IDEA for over 35 years, a former board member and chair. So I'd like to ask, maybe let's start, that was kind of a quick run through. I'd like to start by asking each of you to kind of give us let me just say, so the agenda for today, we're going to cover these things. Capacities and configuration. What are their systems like? Customers and confusion. What's going on out there with this energy transition? Competition and complexity. How are you navigating this uncertainty? Carbon and compliance. We all know that decarbonizing is the issue of the day. And then communications and community. How is this messaging working out in your marketplaces? And finally, last point, we'll get to the confidence. How confident are you in the transition and the work underway? So you get extra points if you can use a C word in your response, all right? Extra points for that. So the theme is driving the energy transition for cities. And Carlyle, let me start with you, because Enwave recently held a groundbreaking in Toronto, implementing industrial heat pumps, energy recovery, the green heat effort. Tell us a little bit about that, if you would.
Sure. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. And it's been such an exciting conference so far. Really appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you. So we're really proud about a lot of the things that we've been doing these days at Enwave. One of the more exciting things that we announced very recently was that we were rolling out a green heat program. And that the precipice for this was we're all looking to decarbonize our systems, and we're looking to be able to do it, figure out the best way to do it for our customers to be able to access the decarbonized energy. We have a number of different heat pump plants all over our system. Actually, our system in Toronto does hot water, chilled water, steam, electricity. We have thermal storage. We have a lot of different assets that spread across the whole system. And we're thinking through, at this time, there's some customers that want to go, net zero carbon, and there's other customers that are not ready to make that transition yet, or their buildings can't. Quite frankly, they still operate fully on steam and other assets. There's not enough electricity out there to distribute all across the grid, so there's challenges around all of it. So obviously with us, we're looking to centralize some of that within our plants, and we're building one heat pump plant at our Pearl Street Energy Center. So our Pearl Street Energy Center, when I started back in 2013, was a steam plant, and I put out 800,000 pph of steam. Right now, it produces steam, it produces chilled water, it produces electricity, and it produces hot water out of that same plant. So we're plugging in a heat pump plant within that facility to be able to produce hot water and chilled water simultaneously in the district. The reason why we're able to do that is because we have chilled water there, so we're taking all the waste heat we're recovering from the downtown Toronto, and we're sucking that up and we're pushing it out as useful chilled water and useful hot water. So the COP of the system, I'm an accountant talking about COP, I don't even know what it means, but the COP of the system is really high, I'm told, which makes it far more efficient than other technologies, and I think that's the value we bring to it. So now we're trying to continue to solve the challenges our partners have, and with all the new buildings, and we have a standard in Toronto called the Toronto Green Building Standard, which ratchets up the energy requirements of buildings. So now they're all looking to be decarbonized, and they have to be. Some of them want to be, some of them are embracing it, some of them realize you got to play, so they have to be. So we're going out there and we're using our scale and we're using our network to be able to package that up for them, and for those that actually want to buy it, we're going to inventory it. We can actually store it. We can store it in the well, our thermal storage, our thermal tank, and we can sell it to customers that actually want to buy it. So we've created a package, and when I say we, this is a collective group of people, and many of them are here. So Gerard from Reshape Strategies came to us, and he was one of the brains that thought this through. We have H.H. Angus, who's in the room, who helped us design all of this, and a number of other of our contracting partners that helped us develop this strategy to be able to help our customers, because at the end of the day, it's all about the customers. So to help our customers achieve their goals. So that's just one of the quivers, I guess, that we have right now, but it's one of the most exciting ones because it's picked up a lot of attention for our industry. And it's actually our third heat pump plant in our system, but it's the first one we advertise, and it's a bit of a shame on us for moving so slowly with that.
Well, I think you're going to start going fast, right? No, Carlyle, you've opened a couple of very important points, and I'm going to come back to those. Thank you. Jake, in Minneapolis, the district energy system there has evolved really over, is it 50-plus years of operation, steam and chilled water? How has the capacity mix evolved, during your tenure? Is it shifting to support a lower carbon solution?
Yeah, in some ways. When they built the system, they built IDS downtown in Minneapolis.
You may want to get closer to the mic.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Anyway, so when they built the system, a big skyscraper went up, and they built the plant, and it just kind of grew from there with the city as the city was built out. And we're still producing primarily with natural gas, steam with natural gas, with number 2 fuel oil as a backup. But as we go forward, we're trying to make plans for what's coming next. And I think everybody here is doing that, and we talked about that a little bit. But we're getting a lot more questions from customers on what they can do as far as lower carbon. We're getting pretty much every customer at some point is asking, what's the carbon intensity of the product that they're buying, steam, chilled water. We do have hot water customers as well. So I would say over the years, when we first started producing energy, our plant was built by IDS, but they partnered with the local gas utility at the time was Minigasco. So we had a plant that was built to run mostly on natural gas. So as we started to where we're at today, we have a lot more dependence on the electrical grid. So we have all these old Caterpillar engines that run on natural gas, and we're moving away from those towards VFDs and more efficient pumping systems to move chilled water around the system. And we no longer just have one plant in the middle of the system. We have a bunch of satellite plants. We have 9 plants total in Minneapolis, serving 3 different standalone systems. So I would say the biggest change from when we started producing steam and chilled water in Minneapolis to today is a lot more reliance on electricity, whether that's standard grid power or if we're buying renewable electricity for the customers that want that. That's probably the biggest change, and we're no longer burning number 6 fuel oil. In the past, that made economic sense. No longer makes economic sense, and it no longer makes environmental sense. So we've moved on from that as well.
Yeah, I think the system in the Minneapolis Energy Center was the first 11 downtown district cooling systems in the United States were actually built by the natural gas LDCs in their community. Hartford, Omaha, Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Minneapolis, because they were utilizing summer gas to make air conditioning and really, leveling the load. But Steve, here in Chicago, Centrio, the strategies for the district cooling system have evolved as well, right? You mentioned the ultrafiltration. You're using the Chicago River, conserving potable water. Tell us a little bit about the investments here. Seems like a winning strategy. You're ahead of it, and you did say this system is now carbon-free?
Carbon zero, yes.
Carbon zero. Tell us more.
Yes, I mean, we're committed to providing sustainability, and as we talked about earlier, sustainability for us is more than just environmental sustainability. We've got to be sustainable in our community, with our people. We've got to be economically sustainable. And that's true for our customers too. So we're excited to bring to them a chill water system in Chicago that we just reduced the carbon footprint for everybody we serve. We're doing that through procurement, as a lot of our district energy chill water systems are going to do that are dependent on electric for the fuel. We're using nuclear power for that and long-term sustainability. So we're excited about this opportunity as well as in the other locations where we are. Everybody knows, there's a big difference between the heating and the cooling side. There's few places, I don't know what the number is, but I would guess 99.9% of the heating for our steam systems are still gas-fired. And there's a lot of transition, a lot of things we're looking at. Everybody. I think the big challenge as we move to decarbonize, it's going to be the transition, right? And the transition's going to take a while. If you look back in time at, there are not a lot of still regulated monopoly businesses, but for those of us that are old enough, remember the Bell systems, the telephone company, railroads were regulated, natural gas was regulated, airlines were regulated. If you study all of those, the transition from regulation to a free market enterprise took 25 to 30 years. And moving from a carbon-based fuel to something that's carbon-free, I think we're going to see something even longer than 30 years. So the challenge is going to be, how do you transition? Because the timing of this can be awkward. You got to put in something today to serve a new load that in a few years may be obsolete, and that's the challenge we face.
But Steve, I'm going to go to Lisa next. But Steve, the Centrio system is able to utilize lower cost, carbon-free nuclear at night because you have 6 plants that have ice storage, right? So,
right.
I mean, that you have the scale and the aggregation to leverage that. Am I correct?
Right. Storage. That's anybody that's in the chill water business that's using storage, whether it's ice or low temperature chilled water or just storing chilled water. We were the first batteries, right? And we're storing electricity, and there's a huge benefit to that. I think what we don't take advantage of in our industry is that we've been environmentally responsible for 100 years. District energy by default is more efficient. And it may not be zero, but it's better than what the alternative was.
And Lisa, in the Corix systems that, thanks, Steve. The Corix systems in Greater Vancouver operate in a very low carbon electric, environment, right? There's a lot of hydropower, and so by nature, your inputs are lower carbon in Vancouver. In Cleveland, the system, Seth was with us at the panel, has made the transition, right, from coal to natural gas. But your background is really in water and from the utility side. What do you see, the transition? How are customers, kind of driving the transition for the Corix systems across the world? And is there a different pace depending on where you are?
Yeah, so I think first it's important to say that even in Vancouver, we do have a lot of very green energy out there, but many of our district energy systems do start natural gas, like many do. And then slowly we'll transition over to better, lower carbon energy sources. I think to what Carlyle mentioned, I think is a really important point, which is customers are not customers are not a monolith, and they all want different things. Particularly here in the U.S., we operate both in Canada and the U.S., and I would say the U.S. is a little bit more of a patchwork in how they view things, and we need to work with the customer to see what they want and what they're willing to pay for, and those things need to go together. In Cleveland, we converted that plant over to natural gas from coal, and we were able to reduce emissions by 84%. So that was a huge step. Did we think we could do better at the time? Yes, we did actually look at a lot of options to do that, where we could have had even lower carbon. But our customers weren't in a place where that was what they were ready to do and what they were ready to pay for. The nice thing with district energy, though, is that we are able to obviously adapt the sources as we move along. And so we have built that plant with the idea that we would move into waste heat recovery, other options moving forward, such that we can reduce those emissions. But the key really is to stay in touch with the customer as we move along to find out what they want and what they need and are willing to pay for.
And Lisa, you bring up a good point. I mean, so the customers are saying we want reliability, resiliency, dependency, and maybe some price stability, but there isn't a pressure necessarily of a carbon signal. Right? There maybe not from the region, not from the state, et cetera. Brian, however, in the Boston area, right, there is, and we'll talk about New York in a minute. There really is an external carbon and driver, right, in Boston, Cambridge for the buildings, and Vicinity has been making investments to support that. Tell us a little bit about Mayor Wu. Bringing the sledgehammer to the unit in Cambridge, to Kendall.
Sure. So I'd even start with about 4 years ago when Local Law 97 and the West Coast were looking at the natural gas bans, and we talked about this quite a bit, is that there was a lot of consternation in this group about what was natural gas ban going to do to the district heating markets. There was the use of the term of headwinds. We turned that around and said, what's the tailwinds? We have the assets, we have the central generation facilities. How do we make it easy for our customers to decarbonize? And one of the ways that we looked at that was through electrification of our large cogeneration facilities. And we happen to be blessed in Cambridge that supplies our Boston and Cambridge networks with a nominally 250 megawatt cogeneration facility. We provide electricity to the New England ISO, but we also then use the waste heat in our district system. So the next step to that was, well, wait a second, we also have a 300 megawatt substation. Is a substation in Cambridge. Why don't we take advantage of that and use that as our decarbonization platform? We use the word E-Steam plan in here, Rob. It's actually a platform for decarbonization. It's not a plan anymore. We are executing. In November, actually, Mayor Wu came and took the sledgehammer to a 60-year-old steam turbine. Today, 7 months later, there is a hole waiting for a electrode boiler to be delivered in March of 2024. Commercial operations for our e-steam, net zero steam product, to be commercially available and being sold July 1st of 24. So we were actually moving forward. Second to that is last April, 2 months ago, we executed a memorandum of understanding with Man Energy System to build the largest industrial scale heat pump, taking advantage of the electricity that we have, the water, the River Charles, and our infrastructure to put in a nominally 30 to 40 megawatt electric heat pump to produce steam for our networks. So now we can address this long-term systematic plan, and as more renewables become available, that plan becomes the project, that becomes the process, that becomes the program to truly decarbonize it. It's great to see that the cities are engaging, challenging us to decarbonize, as well as the customers are demanding it.
Yeah, so as Wayne Gretzky said, you're skating to where the puck is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Frank, to follow on to Brian's comment, ConEdison recently, the steam system recently celebrated its 140th anniversary. And over that lifespan, it's evolved from coal-fired to liquefied coal to liquefied gas to natural gas to CHP. What's the next era? What's the transition for the ConEdison steam system?
Yeah, great question, Rob. It's a really exciting time to be part of the system. The way we're viewing it is similar to Brian and some of my other panelists. You know, we're looking to how we can set the system up for the next 140 years of operation. In New York, we have two very specific regulations that are impacting our customers. And if you think about our customer base, you know, we have 8 million pounds an hour of steam peak capacity or peak load, 500 million square feet connected to the system today. And if you visited the island of Manhattan and saw a Broadway show or a Knicks game or visited the World Trade Center campus, you have interacted with our steam system. It powers the most iconic and famous buildings and landmarks in the city. And those same customers are looking down the barrel of penalties to the tune of $1 to $2 million per year if they do not decarbonize their energy sources. So they are really relying on us and our system to identify a solution where they can still focus on their core businesses, but have an energy solution that will allow them to not realize those penalties. And that's the challenge for our organization. I think it's a challenge for everybody here on the panel, but for us in New York, it's real, it's written into law, and it is something that is, starting next year, the first level of penalties start, and then they ratchet up as the years move on. So our customers are really looking to us for the solution, and the way I see it, over the next 140 years, as you described their transition, we will utilize a portfolio of technologies to achieve that zero carbon future by the specified goals of the regulations.
So, Frank, could we say that steam is not the problem, steam is the solution?
Yep.
And making these the transformation happen at the central plant, the benefits are then delivered to potentially 500 million square feet and 1,500 buildings. Would you like to add to that, and then maybe Brian?
Yeah, so the customers that are connected to the system now, a lot of the buildings were built along with the system. Most of our customers have been customers since their buildings were first constructed. So they are relying, their internal mechanical systems rely on the steam grid being zero carbon, a low carbon option for them moving forward. So they are relying on us to decentralize at our 5 production facilities so they can continue to focus on their core business, but also meet the rules and regulations that are laid out for the city.
And it's conceivable that ultimately it's much more economic to convert, one bunch of bananas than a single banana at a time. Brian, care to add?
That's a good analogy there, is that the ability that we can use collectively to leverage the infrastructure that we have in place, we can transform the heart. If we look at the systems, we serve 12,000 hospital beds, so I'll use a medical term here, is that the heart of the systems are central plants. The arteries of the networks are our pipes that are running underground, and then the buildings are the appendages. The appendages are going to change. You can move them around. They grow. You can do a heart transplant. It's very hard to transplant the arteries, and we have that infrastructure multiple times. For the last 100 years, we've been transitioning and doing heart transplants and leveraging the infrastructure that we have. Our customers look at that as we can do it one time and give the risk to us to execute. We expect you as leaders in the business, leaders in districts, to decarbonize for us and help us, A, take the risk today, and more importantly is, what's the next risk going to be? Whether it be a financial risk or an environmental challenge, what can we do to leverage the existing infrastructure that we have? You take care of it as the leader, one time, as opposed to, you have 500? How many buildings? Well, we only have a couple hundred. So
500 million square
500
feet.
million.
Yeah.
Okay, we have 200 million square feet.
1,500 million, 1,500 buildings.
So as we move forward, it's one time versus hundreds of times. So it's leveraging our existing infrastructure and transforming as we have for the last 100 years.
Well, maybe an analogy might be that district steam is the Netflix, and customers are looking at an alternative of buying like 300 Blu-rays, right, to electrify their buildings, putting heat pumps all over, and then being exposed to the retail electric market. That's not a place you really want to be. We did talk, I'm going to come back to this, but we did talk a little bit about water, right? And conserving water. Steve, Centrio opened the largest sewer heat recovery system in North America, in Denver. The technology there is basically you're taking heat out of sewer main, right? How has that been working, and do you see that replicating those types of systems happening more frequently in more places?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we talk about sustainability. There's nothing more sustainable than poop. And so we've got an opportunity in Denver where we're serving a relatively new campus. Right. And it is a new campus. And the technology is much like everything else we do in district energy. It's very simple. There's a lot of detail from controls, et cetera, but the physics of it are very simple. It works very well. We're going to need to use things like this as we solve the decarbonization problem going forward. There's not going to be one rifle shot. There's going to be a lot of different things. I think one of the things we talk a lot about the air, removing carbon, global warming, et cetera. Water is going to become a bigger deal than air. It's already there, and if you don't believe that, live along the Colorado River. And so where we can, like we are in Chicago with the water filtration project, saving 250 million gallons of water a year, or in Denver, where we're doing something similar. And we talk about this, and I think this is critical. We're also being sustainable for our community. This project opened up a whole riverfront and helped with a water system that was being a heat sink that now is more sustainable in a natural environment, and the community is better for it. So sewer waste heat recovery is an awesome opportunity in all the communities we're in.
Literally a win-win-win.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. And now, Lisa, your background is also in municipal water utilities, right? Now, do you foresee, is there a possibility for more partnering with the district energy company being sort of the, excuse me, the district energy provider being the thermal source to customers, and municipal water utilities now having another business line or revenue stream? Can you see that convergence happening?
For sure. Corix, taking existing infrastructure, bringing innovation is kind of with latest technologies is exactly what we do. And that partnering, from the very beginning is really, really important. Obviously, having the sewer business, and then connecting energy, having both of those, is really kind of the ultimate in economies of scale, in my opinion. You do have to, getting in from the ground up, though, is really critical. It's very important to be partnering early on. And I really liked, Brian, I liked your analogy there with the heart and the arteries. That's how we see it as well. And later today, Corix and Richmond will be speaking together on a partnership we have there, the city of Richmond in British Columbia, where we will be converting the energy there to sewer heat recovery. Similarly, working at the Port of Bellingham, we in Washington, there's a redevelopment at the port. We're putting in a district energy system, and thinking way ahead. The lines are already in the ground before really anything else was done. But right next door, there's a power generation plant, and we will be using waste heat recovery from that plant then to be able to serve the development with other energies. So, absolutely, utilities partnering. Across really all of the utilities, right. I think, not just water and wastewater, is a way to continue to build on this theme. And then early partnering is really, really critical to get that infrastructure in the ground.
Be early, don't be late. Be fast, don't be slow. Well, maybe, but thanks, Lisa. Carlyle, I'm going to come to you in a second, Jake. But Carlyle, I did hear you say earlier that one of the things that Enwave is doing is, you're recovering heat, you're storing it, you're really sort of this hunter-gatherer of a resource that you're creating value out of what would otherwise be waste streams. Yeah, how is district energy really this enabling technology in a city like Toronto?
Well, I guess the size and the scale of the city obviously is an amazing aspect to it. We have some great seasons, and so we have a fair-sized district on the cooling side and the heating side, which allows us a lot of opportunity to balance all of that. I think the environment in Ontario, the environment in Toronto is very opportune for pushing the needle when it comes to energy. We have a pretty clean grid, which is an enabler. It's an expensive grid, but it's a clean grid, so it's an enabler for a lot of these types of opportunities. But I think more than anything else, we have a team at Enwave, and there's a lot of folks in the energy space that have huge aspiration. And we talk about our system so much and the technology, but I really think it's worth talking about the people a little bit, because you have a team, you have 800 people that showed up here that have huge aspirations, that have lots of different varied experiences, and now you're bringing in people like Jake and other people that have backgrounds in nuclear, and you got thermal storage, the biggest players out here, people with all different aspects that are coming to our industry. And I think it's the aspiration, quite frankly, that actually makes these things possible. You have new shareholders that are investors that are coming into this industry that are enablers. Out of the group over here in the last 5 years, almost every one of our businesses has transacted. And we brought in new shareholders that have aligned a cost of capital and aspiration around decarbonization and enabling us to be energy transition specialists, which allows us to elevate what we do and how we do it and push the needle. For Toronto and for our system, and it's not just Toronto, we operate, we use Toronto all the time as if Enwave is synonymous for Toronto, but we operate across Canada, and when we have a mandate for growth. But we have one of the larger energy from waste facilities in PEI, and we're going to double that facility by 2024. We're going to take 90% of the waste from the island. And be able to incinerate that for heat, and it's being supported by the federal government at a number of levels because of the benefits of decarbonization, and as well the resilience on the island, because they're fed most of their energy from the mainland, and they get cut off quite often. So we're able to produce on land and be more self-sufficient. During the hurricane, we were the only thing that was standing when Sandy came through. So it's an amazing story, not unlike all of the systems that my colleagues up here have. They have similar stories. So we're upsizing those facilities. In Toronto, or in the Greater Toronto area, We're building a 16 million square foot, serving 60 million square feet of a wastewater heat recovery. That aspiration isn't Enwave. That's an aspiration where you had a developer, you had a city, you have a municipality, you have a wastewater developer or operator that all are aligned to do the same thing. And I think when we talk about this and we talk about our organizations, we can't be ignorant to the fact that it takes an army and it takes a village and it takes so many different parties to achieve any of these things. And so many of them have shown up here today. It's not just district energy, it's the municipalities and everybody else that actually make these things happen in partnership. So I think that's what's really important these days.
So there's a need really to kind of have a convergence and to be part of that discussion and to really get the collaboration and maintain it and solve for it. Thanks, Carlyle. Jake, Carlyle mentioned nuclear. I just wanted to bump to you because the nuclear. We have a new nuclear group here at IDEA. And your experience includes really operating nukes. Do you foresee a future where a small modular reactor is at the heart of Brian's veins and arteries?
I'd like to say yes. I'm an engineer, or I was anyway. It seems like a silver bullet, right? It's carbon free, it's steam. We have steam systems, and it's going to be super expensive to either turn them into hot water systems, which are easier to decarbonize, or find a way to produce carbon-free steam. Well, we already can. We just run a reactor, and that makes carbon-free steam, makes a lot of it. It's highly, highly reliable. We're talking a lot about decarbonization up here, but our business is reliability. That's what our customers pay for us being there all the time, even through hurricanes. So, when you hear all of those things, you think, well, why aren't we doing this? Well, if you ask me as the manager, which is what I do now, I think more along workforce. Can we get enough people? Can we get the training program? Anybody that's worked in nuclear can tell you the training program is a huge hurdle. So everybody's trained and they're ready to do the job 100% of the time. You need a huge set of policies and procedures, and everybody's got to follow it. And it takes a lot of effort. But as a manager, I would say, yeah, we can do that. We got great people. We can get more good people. We can get a great training program. Seems like we can do it. But then you asked me as somebody who used to work at a nuclear plant. So I was on the EP team, the emergency planning team, and I carried a pager. They still make pagers for the nuclear folks. And when you're on that team, your job is to show up when there's a nuclear emergency. And what's behind all of that is a plan. So if something goes really bad, they tell everybody, get out of here. Everybody within 30 miles, leave. And, I think you could ask anybody at this table who operates a downtown system, would you be able to get everybody out of this downtown system within 30 miles to leave? And they got to be out of here within an hour. And you have to prove it. And it's tough to do that. It's really tough to do that. As we sit here in downtown Chicago, could we get everybody out of here in 30 minutes in the event of a nuclear emergency? So, that's a really big hurdle, and you got to find a way around that. Can we find a way around it? Probably. I think it's available. But then the next hurdle is politics. Can you talk a politician into it? Because everybody didn't want that in their backyard. So, there's a lot of those hurdles. From a technical standpoint, Jake the engineer says, let's do it. But, as somebody who has to deal with the politicians, I don't know. It's tough. And I didn't even talk about waste, so.
Well, it's pretty clear that it's going to require, smart people working on tough challenges. And we do have a new IDEA. It's hosted by Jeremy Shook from EPRI. Jeremy, are you in the house? Is Jeremy here? No, not yet. Okay, but he'll be here at lunch. Anyway, so actually some of our universities are actively pursuing SMR. Yeah. And so maybe that'll be the test case.
Yeah, well, and I hope it's successful, and that's how the civilian, that's how that all got started was through the DOE, and they're licensed differently, so it's a little easier for them as a university, but as a private company or a public company,
yeah,
their hurdles change.
Yeah, maybe a bit of a challenge, no doubt, no doubt. Let's talk about customers for a moment. And many of you mentioned customers and confusion, right? I mean, I think we're in interesting times. So Frank, in Manhattan, you mentioned, so Manhattan, if anyone's ever been to Manhattan, it's so different than Chicago because literally the buildings are on top of each other. It's like walking through a concrete valley, very dense, vertical. The costs are massive to electrify. You know, for the regulators or the politicians to say, just electrify everything. Just electrify. Your customers have been telling you what?
Yeah, it's been a wild ride over the last 24 months, right? When the regulations first came out, the answer was, all right, we're just gonna electrify. Let's just do it. And then the customers started doing their homework. We started doing our homework, and we quickly. So ConEdison is also the electric and gas utility, right, in New York City. So we have all three commodities that we offer. And we did our homework, and we quickly turned around and said, this is not going to work for our customers on an individual basis, but also for us to provide the distribution and transmission to bring all this renewable power in. It's going to be a real challenge. So we quickly took a look at the steam system and decided to push forward with that because there's 500 million square feet of buildings that we could decarbonize with central investments. But the costs and the obstacles to electrify some of these buildings that are on our system are astronomical. And the logistical challenges that add to those costs, like roof space, basement space, incoming electric service. You have a building with 20 different leases that expire on 20 different dates. How do you organize a full building removal of your tenants so you could redo the building? You have legacy systems that have been on our system since they were built with single pipe steam distribution. You're not converting that to an electric heat pump system without some significant building modifications. I know in the workshop yesterday, Brian quoted a figure, I think $40 to $50 per square foot for an electrification project. We've come up with a very similar figure. On top of that, $1 million penalty a year. Our customers are looking at a lot of disruption, a lot of cost, and that number is really the ideal case. If you're a single pipe steam system or you have other complexities like no roof space, that number just continues to rise. So our customers are really in a tough spot with the penalty looming and are looking to us as the provider to provide a cost-effective and low-carbon option for them to either remain on our system or, if they're fossil fuel today, to come on our system as an alternative to electrification.
Yeah, Frank, they're counting on you, right? They're counting on you to do the right thing and be the resource. And Brian, I know that Staples, this is a trademark, be the easy button, right? Steve, did you want to add? Or?
Well, I think one of the things
Frank.
that's frustrating to me about this is that just going electric doesn't mean you've helped anything. We don't have, the options right now, again, I'm back to the transition, that we don't have the power generation capacity to just change everybody today. And in fact, during the transition, as you add more power consumption, you're going to be using the dirtier generation. And so we've got to get smarter about this than just go electric, this notion that we'll just use more hydro. If there's hydro available, it's being done and it's being used, and there is zero just standby waiting to be used. There's no more hydro. It's being used. And, so we'll go wind, solar, awesome. We need to. That's going to help. But we still got to have dispatchable systems that at the moment of need, you can flip the switch and it happens. And so I think in this whole thing, we've got to be smart about how we're going to get this transition. And we're not going to get to carbon zero just going to all electric, because we got to solve the electric generation problem first.
Well, so maybe we're skating where the puck isn't.
Well, there's just a notion that electric fixes it, and it doesn't right now.
Yeah, it's magical thinking, I think, at the moment, right? Brian, in Boston Cambridge, though, East-Team has really, I think people, your customers are responding to this, that you're taking the leadership role to solve this problem with and for them. Am I right?
That's right. That's right. So what we've really tried to do the last 3.5 years of our existence of Vicinity is really get out and be collaborative. Not only with the cities and the communities that we're in, with our engineering partners that are out here, with our construction partners, but with the activists, with the environmentalists, with the folks who are planning for 2035, 2040, 2050. Vicinity is going to be net zero by 2050. But that's, 27 years now? It's not as long as I thought, but it's, 2050. But what can we do today? And I've written down some words here, is that we can continue to change. We've been evolving for 100 years. Let's take advantage, leverage our infrastructure, and continue to evolve and lead from the technology perspective, because we have the ability to do it and leverage our systems today. We can do it at scale. And we're in Boston and Cambridge. When we make changes there, we can impact 70 million square feet. As we go to New York, frank impact, again, 500 million square feet. You can't do that one banana, to quote Rob, at a time. You've got to do this at scale. And then we've got to be an enabler. The hydro is all taken. We've got to look to when the offshore wind comes on, when the next big projects are coming, when gigawatts of renewables are out there, can we enable it? Can we encourage it? And can we help accelerate it? And through the enablement, we're able to increase additionality. We're able to move in that direction. So eventually, Steve, we will have enough clean, green electricity, but we need to be ahead of the game so that we can continue to encourage it and continue to deliver to our customers, because that's what they're looking to us to do.
Brian, is that an inherent advantage that many district steam systems were original electric generation facilities, for the cities, for downtown, and therefore, over their lifespan, they're connected to the grid at a wholesale level, right? So when, low carbon, low cost, maybe even zero cost or negative price wind is available, will the district energy system be, kind of arbitrage, able to lever that?
It very well could be. I try not to use the word wholesale. I'd like to
Wholesale,
use transmission interconnects, interconnected at higher voltages, which obviously provide efficiencies. We're also looking to is how do we encourage it? So when I go to a customer today, and we have contracts signed in Boston, if they have a power purchase agreement for a solar field in the Midwest or a wind farm onshore, and they want to assign that PPA to us, we can pass that through and certify that their steam will be green. So we can have long-term. So then we're de-risking it on a cost perspective, because the renewable companies are willing to go into long-term PPAs. So now we de-risk the commodity component, we're de-risking legislative risk, and we're de-risking their need to change in technologies. So it's really a multi-pronged approach.
And you have the expertise within your organization to help these customers really navigate a very, challenging situation. Lisa, did you want to add?
We were just talking about carbon policy and customers in general, and I do think that it's important as we think about this to think about first of all, like who the end customer is that we're talking about, and are we talking about end users or are we talking about developers? And I think that, and I don't say this lightly, I'm not a big I'm kind of a diehard capitalist, and so when which is interesting working in a highly regulated industry, but I actually do believe that regulation can really support this in kind of on two fronts. As we think about on the customer side of things, sub-metering, what signals are we sending to customers to get them actually to behave in the direction that we would want to see to actually be able to capitalize on the low carbon systems that we're putting in. So sub-metering, increasing block rates, that will bring its own level of complication, obviously, because if we are trying to turn off consumption, then we're going to have to get revenue in other ways to still meet a total revenue requirement. But in general, I think there are things on the customer side to actually change behavior that we can do from a regulatory standpoint. And then on the developer side of things, Toronto, BC is a province, we've got more progressive regulations around kind of driving low carbon energy systems. In Washington, Governor Inslee, has helped pass legislation there that is driving developers to put in low carbon systems. And so I think together those things will also help shape customer behavior. Our experience right now is that I think there's a lot of education that we can do, all of us up here, but there's a lot of work to really be done in this area to kind of to create the pull on to drive a full transition.
And would anyone on the panel care to comment to follow on Lisa's point that it feels to me like maybe state legislators or local policymakers are well-intentioned, but sometimes underinformed, right? And so there's sort of this notion of, well, we've heard electrify everything, gas is an opioid, these sort of larger themes. But Frank, in Manhattan, Manhattan has a very sophisticated, market and, very complex situation. Is the convergence of local laws and state law kind of creating just a complication? And tell us more about that.
Yeah, I think that's an understatement, right? I have customers, some of my customers, a good handful of them, know I have a metering issue before I know. That's how sophisticated their building management systems are, their energy managers are. They have people looking at this 24/7, 365. They know down to the penny of what their local law 97 penalty is going to be. But on the other side, and probably the majority of my customers are not as well informed, right? They don't have the money or the staff that looks at these kind of things. And really, they're focused on their core business. Their core business is keeping their buildings filled. If they're a hospital, it's keeping people, getting people in beds, getting them out of beds. If they're a theater, it's putting on a production, right? They don't want to or don't have the resources to do this kind of energy investigation. But it's really, I would say, and I said it yesterday in the workshop, but the New York City marketplace from an energy perspective is kind of exhausted. There's been a lot of change over the last 20 years. If you go back 15 years ago, we had a very aggressive oil to natural gas effort where we were converting oil buildings as per city mandate to natural gas options, and natural gas was the savior of the environment at the time. Right, so you fast forward to now, and now some of those buildings that made those investments in CHP or natural gas boilers are now being asked to look elsewhere and look at other options. And only 15 years on a brand new CHP system, you are not recouping that investment, or maybe you did, but you still have time to ride it out. Like you want to ride that out for a 30-year minimum. And I would say the marketplace is a little exhausted, but optimistic. And I think the majority of the higher-end customers have really accepted, this decarbonization strategy and the effort and the law, and know they have to do something. But there's a good amount of the marketplace that is just kind of waiting and seeing what happens. And I think to Lisa's point, that there's a good amount of marketing, communication, and customer engagement that we have to do. It's probably to a greater extent than we've ever done to make sure our customers are ready to make the transition along with us and understand what we are doing to take steps to get ready for the future.
Thanks, Frank. Let's talk about that for a minute. What role should our individual organizations and potentially our association, what role should we be playing in informing, connecting, educating, both building owners, developers, but mayors' offices and state energy offices and provincial, government, the people that are sort of, creating these rules and regulations. Carlyle in Toronto, it seems that the city is right in, like they get it. You have support at the provincial level, and even the federal government is eager to invest in, district energy solutions. Did that just happen? Was that just fortunate, or what?
To be honest, I don't know how it happened, quite frankly. I do know that that generally the success of organizations or technologies like our deep lake water cooling in Canada has certainly put us on the map. I mean, we had a Canadian District Energy Association, which is now merged in here, and the IDEA has been very helpful as we've tried to push as hard as we can to think about alternative solutions. There's a lot of advocates out there. There are a lot of advocates out there that understand district energy, what's happened in Europe. I think in this room, there's many Europeans, and there's a lot of systems that are very forward technologically when it comes to district energy, and they've seen it as a proven model. They travel around the world, they see what they see, and they have aspirations. And I think that's what we say in Ontario all this time is just depending on where you are. Like if you go out there and say this is a made in Ontario solution, everybody's eyes light up. If you say it's exportable, you can make it in Ontario and export it around the world, everybody's eyes light up of something that has actual economic scalability and value to a province. So I think there's a lot of reasons why the province, why the governments at all levels look at these, look at district energy and want to implement it. I think what they've done really well is they've enabled the private sector to be able to do that instead of trying to do it themselves, and they've been able to support the private sector in doing that, which has allowed us to be able to scale it a lot faster than others. But I won't sit here and say, like, we came in as Enwave and, we did all this lobbying and we pushed the government. We're just this compared to oil and gas and compared to all the other lobbyist groups that they have to work with. I think that you do have a lot of smart people in government and you have a lot of advocates around there. And they are well-intentioned to want to get to the right solutions when it comes to it, and they are well-educated around what the art of the possible is there. Sometimes they're a little bit misaligned in how they go about doing things, but they're misaligned, quite frankly, because I think they're trying to push an agenda as hard as they can in the 4 years that they're there, and then so that it gets so far that it doesn't get unfolded by the next group that comes on. And the biggest challenge with any government is the stability in any of these things, whether it comes carbon tax or whatever you want to say, is like whatever they want to put in place, they just have to be stable with it so we can actually we can operate when we're putting in 60 and 100-year assets. We just need them to be consistent so that we can actually make investments consistently and do that. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that we go back to government is stop changing your minds. Be consistent, and let's just pick something and go with it and make it work.
So being whipsawed is really not ideal. Remarkably, we only have a few minutes left, and I'd like for each of you to kind of just share your crystal ball, but put it in the context of how confident are you that district energy, by 2030, will be making a difference. And from where we sit today, tell us, both your view of district energy and your confidence factor in making life better for the buildings in Manhattan and Denver. Steve, start with you, and we'll come this way.
IDEA has never been better positioned for what's in front of us. Pardon the pun, but knowledge is power, and our opportunity to communicate with our communities, with our customers, with the industry is never been had a better platform. You have to understand what's going on. It's not simple. In the past, when you had a telephone from Bell System, you just called, they put it in, you knew nothing about it, you had no choices. Today, you have to be knowledgeable to get a phone plan. You have to study it, and it's the same thing whether you're getting power, fossil fuel, whatever it is, and people are just not educated and knowledgeable about it. And we have an opportunity to be that thought leader for them, to educate them, to show them, and them look to us as the leader. I don't think IDEA's ever been better positioned to be the leader in what's going forward with decarbonization and how this world's going to change.
Thanks, Steve. I'm glad to hear you're bullish. Lisa, how about you? How does it look?
Same. I feel very confident. I think the economies of scale, they're undeniable, and as competition continues to increase and prices go up, people are going to have to be looking at alternatives, and so I think the economies of scale are undeniable. I also think the flexibility is a real plus. The reality is, and I wrote it down actually because I heard it and I thought, I don't know that I agree with this. Somewhere in the conversation, we said, well, we all know decarbonizing is important. I'm actually not sure I think that's true. I think probably all of us in this room do, but I think that there's a lot of people that don't. I think we've got a lot of people that are at different places in their journey of understanding, this issue. And that, like we did in Cleveland, for example, where we were able to address cost of coal, cost volatility of coal, increase reliability, meet people where they were right then, but also be able to build on and be ready to change to greener energy in the future. So I think that flexibility will serve us well in the process. And then also, I think that we can build infrastructure in such a way, we're doing it in all of our greenfield developments where it's just-in-time delivery on the capital side. So we're not doing a field of dreams, build it and it will come version, of district energy, but having energy sources out in the community, and then as density increases, then we can build bigger plants and have bigger options. I think all of those things are a really smart way to perceive an energy transition, and I think smart usually wins, so also bullish.
Let's hope smart wins. Let's hope. Thanks very much, Lisa. And I really get your point that not everybody sees the urgency or understands, or I don't know if they don't care, but it isn't. There are other issues front of mind, right? So good points. Brian, from where you sit.
I'll say ditto and very bullish. Highly confident that we're going to continue on the past 100 years of evolving. I also wrote down flexibility, both today and while as our customers are changing, office space converting to lab space, small lab space growing into a building, growing out into manufacturing. Transition for post-pandemic. What does the office environment look like? What do the building environments look like? What do the campus environments look like? Flexible on how we address those solutions that are going to be required. Leverage the infrastructure that we have. Be confident in a path that we're taking. Look to the smart people in this room to provide the next solution that's not just so crazy, nuclear, not just so crazy, but how do we get there safely, reliably, and then engage. I think whether we engage in these groups, we engage at the local levels, it's not just the mayor and her team, but it's the staff. Educate, communicate, get out in front of it, be visible, whether it be social media or in person, be visible and tout the benefits, the flexibility, the long history of success, and then just engage the next generation. We had, 279 new people here? Maybe we could have 579 next year.
Yeah.
So just engage the next generation, and they'll bring new thoughts to the table, which will continue to leverage our success.
Very good. Thanks very much, Brian. I think you're spot on there. So Jake, Minneapolis is one of America, very fast-growing community. A lot of people want to work and live there. From your view, will the Cordia system continue to support the evolution of the Minneapolis market?
Yeah, of course. And I would agree with you guys. I think there's a lot of complex problems out there, and it's going to take organizations like us to solve those, because it's going to require a complex solution. You gotta decarbonize while you're also staying reliable. I think a lot of us would have stories to tell in our plants. You can point to a pipe and say that pipe got hot in 1971, and we've never had it down. And we have a bunch of pipe like that in our plant that is always hot, always running, always going. And we need to be there, but at the same time, we need to decarbonize. We need to do heart surgery at the same time. And, oh, by the way, it's also got to be economic for our customers. And it's also got to be economic for our ownership. Carlyle talked about, there's been a lot of transactions at the company level. So there's expectations that come with that we have to meet. while also meeting our customers' economic expectations, right? So, and as we just talked about, the workforce is changing. We saw a transition. I know at my plant, we've had a lot of transitions. I have a person who's retiring July 1st that started with the company in 1978. So you have to replace that. That's a lot of experience, and it's tough to find those people. Yeah. So there are a lot of complex problems here, but I think we can solve them. I'm fully confident.
It's literally a 4-level chessboard now, right?
Yep.
And you have to sort of move the pieces accordingly. Thanks, Jake. Frank, from your view.
Yep, I agree with all my panelists, but Steve specifically, I feel like the wind is at our back for the first time in a while. I do think the opportunities are abound in front of us, and I think the IDEA and the team in this room and my fellow panelists, we're all positioned for a very significant transition and a renaissance for a lot of our systems and a rebirth for a lot of our systems. I just think, are we ready to grab it with both hands and run with it? I do think we need to be mindful of the workforce and the workforce challenges moving forward and making sure that we have adequate training programs that people are going to be able to install and operate these very unique systems we are putting in. But also, probably more so than in our history, advertising, marketing, and boiling down very complex terms and ideas into very consumable sound bites, and finding ways to connect with the community, the regulators, and our customers is going to be key to our success. When I saw the mayor of Boston go to Vicinity, I was 99% excited. And we need more of this. I was 1% jealous that I didn't get the mayor of New York City to my plant yet, but I think we need more of that. And I think we need, the high level, the rulemakers and the legislators involved in our decisions, but also we need to make sure we boil down our concepts and our forward thinking into very consumable sound bites that the future generation and marketplace can consume and be part of our mission.
Excellent point, Frank. Thank you very much. And before I go to you, Carlyle, I just want everyone to understand, IDEA has retained the Greeno agency. They're a marketing, branding, PR firm. They're working on your behalf with us. Christine Williamson and Jack Levy are here. Please say hello. Let's give them a nice round of applause because they are here. They're from Boston. Frank, they're from Boston, which,
okay.
That's okay, right?
We're in it together.
Yeah.
Right.
IDEA has retained them to help us do exactly what Frank just mentioned. Get the messages concise, smart, and leverage all the great work that all of you are doing, but make it understandable and consumable and easy, right? So, Christine, Jack, you're this close to a clean getaway. You could jump now, but I think you've heard that you're in the right spot, and we really appreciate you being here. Finally, Carlyle, as chair of IDEA, you're sharpening the axe. How do you see the future for your organization and our industry writ large?
Yeah, so you started the question asking us about pulling out our crystal balls, and unfortunately, I don't have any crystal balls. I can't see the future. I'm very pragmatic about things. We have huge aspirations about getting to net zero, and I don't know whether we control it all. I don't know if we'll get there. I think we'll definitely get close, but I don't know if we'll get there. I hope we do. But with those aspirations, I think we went on a journey at Enwave. We actually transacted 2 years ago tomorrow to create our new Enwave 3.0, and as we started that out, we went on a journey to sort of rethink ourselves and realign ourselves. And we created a new purpose for our organization, and that purpose is create opportunities or create possibilities and share the value. And I think that guiding star for us is to align our people, really our people, to what we're actually trying to achieve. And when we think about district energy, we talk about fuel sources, we talk about pipes, we talk about plants, we talk about all these different things, but really it's about the people and the aspirations of the people and how they use the tools that we have to create that value. In the last 2 years, we've launched a number of different business lines at Enwave, and we've launched them on a single building level, serving single family homes, because we're actually looking to create possibilities, create opportunities, understand our customers, and create value for our customers in the marketplace. I think what the future holds to 2030 and 2050 is we have to attract the best talent into this industry, and keep on building on the amazing people we have here and the aspirations we have here that are going to take a lot of the things that all my colleagues said over here. Every single one of them mentioned people and training people and use people and having people go out and talk to legislature and people. It's all about you all there. So I think there's 16 of us at Enwave over here that are actually came out and showed up here, and there's another 800 of you out here that are super passionate, and I think you got to take that passion and you have to make things happen and align yourselves to exactly that. And if we do, there's no telling what, as an industry, what our companies can work together and achieve. So I don't have a crystal ball, but we have a lot of passion, a lot of aspiration, and we're going to put it to good use.
Thanks, Carlyle. I mean, and thank you all. I have a sense of confidence and really do appreciate all of you making time to share both your perspective and your vision for where your organizations and where our industry are headed. Let's give our panelists a nice round of applause. So before you depart, we're going to flip the table pretty quickly because one of you mentioned we can learn a lot from our colleagues outside of North America, from around the world. Our next panel will be an international panel of people that are joining us from Europe, the Middle East, etc. And so we're going to make that transition. So before you leave, I have a small parting gift, and then we're going to actually show a video from our hosts and trio while the new panel is coming forward. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, and let's make the switch. We're going to make the panel transition.